Alright, this next video is on how to hold a bow. So with very young students, I frequently start them out with a dowel bow, which is just a little wooden dowel or stick with a kind of, like half an eraser attached down where the frog would be, because it simplifies things. There's less parts, there's no hair, and so it makes it easier to see how to hold a bow. I don't have a dowel bow on me right now, unfortunately, so I can't demonstrate with that, but I will just do with my real bow. So yeah, some basics about the bow, as I talked about before. You want to make sure not to touch the hair, because that will get it oily and then it'll be hard to play. You also want to make sure that kids don't hold it by the tip, because that's pretty dangerous. I mean, the tip is fragile. And you have less control because also the frog is heavier than the tip. So yeah, I've just tightened my bow, so it looks like that. You want to make sure that you don't over tighten it, because otherwise the stick could break, so that's not great. Yeah, so how to hold the bow. What I typically do with students at their first lesson where they use the bow is I'll have them hold their right hand out. So yeah, your right hand is your bow hand. And then I'll show them how there's 3 parts of your fingers. There's like this bottom segment, there's the tip, and then there's a middle segment. So the middle segment is where we want the bow to go. And so what I'll do is I'll hold the bow for the kid in my left hand, and I'll have the tip point to the right and the hair be up. And then I'll say, okay, the bow is coming along the train tracks, and the train tracks are the middle of your fingers. So yeah, this segment right here in the middle, not the bottom, not the tip. Those are the train tracks. And so I'll say, okay, here comes the train, it's going along the train tracks. And then when we get to the frog, then what I do is you have the student make their pinky round. So you curl it in, and then you put it so that it's sitting on the bottom, or the top, ultimately, of the stick. Yeah, so I'll make a few comments about this right now. The stick at the frog end is octagonal, so it has these different sides. You want the pinky, generally speaking, to be on the top. So yeah, if I'm holding it upside down, then I want it to be on like the bottom side. I want to make sure that's not hanging over like this, but rather it's just touching the bottom. Next step is to have the student put their thumb on the frog. Now for students who are just starting out, I encourage them to put the tip of their thumb on the little metal part here called the ferrule. So yeah, the metal part, you put the tip of your thumb on it. And the biggest thing you want to look out for is, well, 2 things. One, you want to make sure that students are touching the frog, in this case the ferrule, which is the little shiny metal part, with the corner of their thumb, just the tip of their thumb. So I say, like, okay, take the right corner of your right thumb and like look at your fingernail there. So that's about where you want to be touching the ferrule with your thumb. We don't want to touch it with the pad of our thumb, because that's going to make it hard to have our thumb be round. So yeah, I'm going to do my bow hold like that. And as you can see, my thumb is arched and it's bent at this bottom joint. That's really important. And so yeah, you want to make sure that the thumb is on at the tip and the joint is arched. Yeah, so here is my basic bow hold that I've formed from it being upside down. So yeah, I'm going to start over where I'm just like doing the train on the train tracks, where I'm putting the stick along the middle of my finger, so not the bottom, not the tip. So I'm going to slide the stick along the middle of my fingers. I'm going to make my pinky round and have it be perched on that edge on the bottom. Then I'm going to put my thumb which is round. I'm just going to put the tip of my thumb on the ferrule. And then I'm going to make the rest of my fingers flat to the frog. So I'm going to kind of hug the frog with my middle fingers. My middle and ring finger. And then I'm going to flip it over. And that's your basic bow hold. So some things to look out for here. The most common problem is that kids, when they're starting out, their pinkies are not strong enough, and they're also typically double jointed because kids are flexible. And so I don't even know if I can do this with my pinky anymore because I'm not sure that my pinky physically does it. But they'll have their pinky collapse like this, and yeah, so that's the biggest problem. I should be providing everyone, I think this week or next week, with like little plastic or rubber tubes to put on the end of the stick here. So that can help keep the pinky round. So yeah, that's the biggest problem, is just keeping a nice arched pinky. The second biggest problem is frequently that kids will have their thumb be straight and locked like this, and especially some of them are double jointed. That's also going to make it really hard to play, so we want to make sure that it's nice and round. I'm going to get out one of these styrofoam balls that I have. These are about the right size. For my hand at least, it might be a little bit big for some younger children, so in that case I just use, I think I have some little puff balls, like felt ones that I use for this purpose. So yeah, you want there to be a big enough circle between the index finger and the thumb to put a small ball between. So yeah, I have these styrofoam balls for that purpose. So that can help to keep the thumb nice and round. The last thing to look out for, and this is a little bit more tricky and not quite as important, is just to make sure that the index finger is not too far forward. So we want, yet again, the index finger to be touching the stick between the two knuckles here. So what's common is for students to have their index finger too far forward, and then it'll be close to the base knuckle instead of in this middle segment. So that's one more thing to look out for. Again, that's not quite as important, but this is just information for you to have. So yeah, this is your beginner bow hold. As students get more advanced, they will progress to your normal bow hold, which is where you have a smaller circle and you put your thumb, so you put your thumb on the bottom of the stick, you put your thumb on the bottom of the stick close to this part of the frog. So see how there's a little U here and then there's a notch. You put your thumb in that notch. And we still want to make sure that it's nice and round. Nice and round. So yeah, this is my standard bow hold, and this is the long-term goal for students. Ultimately another thing to look out for is to make sure that the fingers are together, these middle and ring finger are together and not separated. This is also a common problem. Oh wait, I forgot to mention one of the biggest problems also that students have with bow holds. It's very common for students to have their fingers creep upward on the bow because they're used to holding things by their fingertips. This causes a lot of tension and makes it very difficult to play if kids are doing this. So yeah, one of the biggest things, aside from the pinky, is making sure that these fingers are lapped over the frog and are not sticking out like that or up here. So as you can see, my fingers are flat to the side of the frog. Yeah, so that's how to hold a bow.